Jerry Falwell Jr., president of Liberty University, predicted an increase in evangelical voters supporting President Donald Trump in 2020's presidential election, joining SiriusXM's Breitbart News Sunday for an interview with host Matt Boyle. "I think 83% of evangelicals voted for him in 2016, and I think in 2020 it'll be an even higher percentage," he explained. Falwell Jr. went on, "Even evangelicals were disillusioned by the moderate Republican administrations of the last few decades. They voted on social issues back in those days, and they finally realized that there was never really going to be any change on social issues, so they stopped voting on social issues, and instead now they vote on the same issues that all average Americans who supported Trump vote on, bringing jobs back to this country and fair trade deals. I think it's great what Donald Trump is doing on China," continued Falwell Jr. "I admire a president willing to be able to take a hit. The economy will take a hit when he fights these trade wars, but he knows long term that the benefit to America will be much greater than any hit we take in the short term. We're getting ripped off with these bad trade deals. I think evangelicals see that." Falwell Jr. added, "Evangelicals see immigration as a big issue. They just gave up on voting on social issues because they've been betrayed by Republican administration after Republican administration. So they just quit, and they started voting on the same issues that working-class Democrats and average Americans vote on, and it's all the issues that Donald Trump ran on." Falwell Jr. mocked left-wing and partisan Democrat political marketing of Joe Biden as a middle-class advocate. "It really makes me laugh when Joe Biden talks about the middle class, like that's who liberals want to help," stated Falwell Jr. "In California, where the liberals rule, the middle class has just given up and left the state. Everybody I talk to says it's super rich and super poor and the illegal aliens, who are all that are here anymore. It's because of policies that are in place that the middle class can't afford." Falwell Jr. went on, "President Trump is just the opposite. He's doing everything he can to help the middle class, the average American. That's why he got elected. That's why evangelicals supported him, because mostly evangelicals are average Americans and not part of the elitist establishment. It's just comical that there are people like Joe Biden talking about helping the middle class. I can't even believe he has the gall to say that." Falwell Jr. called for prosecutions of government officials who concocted and executed surveillance of Trump's 2016 presidential campaign under the guise of what he described as the Russian collusion hoax. Falwell Jr. said, "I really feel like the strategy of the left and of the establishment Republicans has been to slow-roll all of Donald Trump's appointments, his judges, and trying to just cloud his presidency with this phony Russian collusion hoax, and just trying to run the clock out on him. I know there's no mechanism in the Constitution to add a couple of years to somebody's term because that kind of behavior, but somebody needs to pay," Falwell Jr. added, referring to his own tweet on Saturday about a corrupt failed coup. "Somebody needs to be prosecuted because of this criminal behavior," declared Falwell Jr. "We need to restore the confidence in our system of justice in this country after what we saw happen with James Comey, and people at the top of the Obama Justice Department and how they exonerated Hillary Clinton, without even interviewing her, and how they went after Donald Trump even before he got elected and then doubled down after he got elected on a phony dossier. It just defies my sensibilities that something like that could happen in the United States of America," lamented Falwell Jr. "I really hope Attorney General Barr, I really think he will go after the people who are responsible for this, probably the greatest scandal and abuse of power in American history. I agree with the president when he says it's far worse than Watergate." Falwell Jr. criticized the status quo of professional politicians and what he said was the political establishment. "We need people who've been successful in the private sector to be elected into public office, because they're the only ones who really understand there is no free lunch," remarked Falwell Jr. "Somebody has got to pay those teachers to teach in those colleges. Somebody has to pay for the buildings. I run a college. I know how expensive it is. You've got to pay your bills. You've got to operate like a business." Falwell Jr. added, "If you want to see how socialism ends up, look at Venezuela. You have to give people incentive to succeed in order for them to create jobs for other people, to build an economy, and to create economic development." Falwell Jr. concluded, "But Democrats and a lot of establishment Republicans don't understand that because all they've ever done their whole lives is learn how to say the right things to get elected, and to do the right things to stay in office, and that's not what the founders intended. The founders intended for this country to be run by citizen legislators. They would come in for a few years, serve, and go back to whatever their business is. Until we get back to that, we're going to see this idiocy continue, a sports writer took to Twitter on Monday to point out that not a single white player on the Boston Red Sox was willing to stand in solidarity with players of color, almost all of whom declined to attend the team's upcoming White House visit. Bleacher Report's Brittany de la Cretas didn't hold back when it came to the Red Sox organization either, saying that the franchise should never have let this happen by accepting the WH invite in the first place. The tweet comes one day after Red Sox manager Alex Cora announced that he did not feel comfortable attending his team's scheduled White House visit to celebrate their 2018 World Series championship. Cora made that decision out of a sense of displeasure with the Trump administration's handling of relief efforts to his native Puerto Rico. Red Sox president and CEO Sam Kennedy, who was planning on attending the ceremony, made it clear that he supports his manager's decision. "We fully support Alex and respect his decision," Kennedy told the Boston Herald via text. "He and I have discussed this issue frequently since last November, and I know it was a hard decision for him. I am grateful to principal owner, John, Henry, and chairman, Tom, Werner, for creating a culture where we discuss these issues openly and encourage individual decision-making. I appreciate Alex for talking openly with our team and supporting those who are looking forward to being honored on Thursday." As The Hill reports, in April, the University of Virginia men's basketball team declined an invitation to celebrate their NCAA tournament victory at the White House, citing scheduling conflicts. The North Carolina Tar Heels cited similar scheduling issues after winning the 2017 tournament. The headline spread around the world Monday with the release of the United Nations 3-year, 1,500-page report on biodiversity screamed that humans are killing the planet and its population of animals and plants, with as many as 1 million species facing extinction in mere decades. However, mankind can stop the destruction through transformative change that could translate into globalism, replacing national sovereignty and nations' self-determination. The health of ecosystems on which we and all other species depend is deteriorating more rapidly than ever, Sir Robert Watson, chairman of the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, which produced the report. "We are eroding the very foundations of our economies, livelihoods, food security, health and quality of life worldwide." Watson added, "The report also tells us that it is not too late to make a difference, but only if we start now at every level from local to global. Through transformative change, nature can still be conserved, restored and used sustainably. This is also key to meeting most other global goals. By transformative change, we mean a fundamental, system-wide reorganization across technological, economic and social factors, including paradigms, goals, and values." The introduction to the report said, "Despite progress to conserve nature and implement policies, the report also finds that global goals for conserving and sustainably using nature and achieving sustainability cannot be met by current trajectories, and goals for 2030 and beyond may only be achieved through transformative changes across economic, social, political and technological factors." Although the UN presents its report as scientific, its authors and advocates promote climate change as settled fact and praise political movements that embrace man-made global warming ideology, including students skipping classes to protest. Watson said, "We have already seen the first stirrings of actions and initiatives for transformative change, such as innovative policies by many countries, local authorities, and businesses, but especially by young people worldwide. From the young global shapers behind the #Voice for the Planet movement to school strikes for climate, there is a groundswell of understanding that urgent action is needed if we are to secure anything approaching a sustainable future." The massive report's introduction has pulled some of its findings for bullet points, including evidence of human progress that the report deems a threat. 300% increase in food crop production since 1970. 3% increase in land transformation to agriculture between 1992 and 2015, mostly at the expense of forests. +13 million forestry industry jobs. 50% agricultural expansion that occurred at the expense of forests. 1% total land used for mining, but the industry has significant negative impacts on biodiversity, emissions, water quality, and human health. +6,500 offshore oil and gas ocean mining installations, in 53 countries. 70% proportion of cancer drugs that are natural or synthetic products inspired by nature. The media ran with the grim predictions of the report, including the Associated Press, which found experts to weigh in favor of its findings. Humanity unwittingly is attempting to throttle the living planet and humanity's own future, said George Mason University biologist Thomas Lovejoy, who has been called the godfather of biodiversity for his research. He was not part of the report. The biological diversity of this planet has been really hammered, and this is really our last chance to address all of that, Dr. Lovejoy said. Watson's remarks revealed the underlying philosophy of its proponents but also stated it would generate opposition. The member states of Splenary have now acknowledged that, by its very nature, transformative change can expect opposition from those with interests vested in the status quo, but also that such opposition can be overcome for the broader public good, Watson said. President Donald Trump pardoned Army Lieutenant Michael Behana, who was prosecuted and convicted of killing prisoner Ali Mansur Mohammed during his deployment in Iraq. Behana was convicted in 2009 of the unpremeditated murder of Mohammed, despite his claim that he acted in self-defense after Mohammed reached for his gun. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison but was released early on parole. Trump's pardon came just days after Oklahoma Attorney General Mike Hunter sent a letter to Trump requesting a pardon for Behana. Mr. Behana's case has attracted broad support from the military, Oklahoma elected officials, and the public, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said in a statement to reporters, noting that 37 military generals and admirals and a former Inspector General of the Department of Defense signed a brief in support of Mr. Behana's claim.